Welcome back, everybody. This is Mark 145. My name is Greg. I am the Bat Daddy 52. I'm joined by my co-host and buddy here, Ross, and putting us together, we are geeks chasing squirrels across the multiverse.
-1.
-1. Yeah, Sarah's taking the week off, doing some family stuff, but totally understandable. Got to do it sometimes. Kind of a slow week this week as far as content goes. We had a huge week last week with movie premieres and finales and blah, blah, blah. But lack of content does not mean lack of quality. We've got some good stuff coming this week. Miss Marvel finale. Me and Ross are going to talk about Terminal List. We watched that whole series. And we have two special guests this week to talk about their comic RAZE. So let's get things started. I want to go ahead and welcome to the show Sam Willis and Trey Prim. They are the creators of the comic RAZE. We are going to talk to them about their comic, where you can find it, what it's about, get the news out there. They got a Kickstarter going. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pitch it to you guys. As you guys go ahead and present your comic, give us kind of an elevator pitch. We'll start to break it down, and I'm going to put some artwork up there for people to see.
Absolutely. Trey, you want to start us with the elevator?
It's all you, man.
all right. I'll start with the elevator. So, RAZE. So, I would say this is a new, fresh take on the zombie genre. So, pretty much the elevator pitch is a deadly virus has just hit the states of, hit New York pretty much. We start in Peekskill, and you follow a main character who is born with a rare condition. And you're either going to see he is going to be the cure-all to mankind, or he's going to kind of send them through the rabbit hole of damnation. So you're going to kind of see how that plays out, but that's pretty much the elevator pitch.
Okay.
And issue 1 that you're going to see is it's very kind of throwing you into this world. There's no origin stories. We kind of just start these characters off on a bridge, and you'll see as you go through the issue, it gets worse and worse and worse.
It's a very, very, I'm not gonna lie, confusing way to start the comic off.
Yes.
Because I noticed that going through reading it, I didn't even get names of anybody until I was like 2 or 3 in, and I was like, okay, I'm trying to figure out, but it gives you it. I noticed it pulled me in more because it makes me more interested in what happens next because I'm trying to figure this out or put the pieces together as I'm going. So it was interesting. It worked. It was different.
Yes, correct. It's all about being different. You know, we always talked about when we made this issue is we want to do something that, it felt different, and it kind of was like we're throwing you into this world and we're establishing the rules right off the bat. So as you're kind of going through the first issue, you're like, holy crap, this is what these things can do. This is the gore. These are the stakes. And then we kind of get into a lot of these characters as we move on through the series.
I noticed that as we, going through the first issue, it's very real world as far as the conversations between the people and the comments they're having. It's not like you're in a story in a comic. It feels like you're starting out in the story as if you were in a car ride with some of the conversations they're having. It's a lot of arguments going on with the people there, and you're trying to figure out what's going on with these arguments with these two guys in the first comic. And it's like I said, it's after you get the first one, you've got to dive immediately in the second one, try to figure out where it's going from here, or what's next in this story. So
absolutely, yeah, that was always like the question, because it's like these are just a bunch of people who really don't really know each other that well. So it's like, we're in the Northeast, we're from the Northeast, and it's like, every I think story you expect people to just get along right off the when they meet each other, and that's not realistic. Like, you wouldn't know this person, and if someone like bothers you or you hit someone's car, they're not gonna be like, hey, what's your name? It's like, no, what are you doing, you a-hole? Like, you just hit my car. And that's kind of how we went in that direction with the story.
Oh yeah, it's a very it's a story of unlikely strangers coming together, and like you said, a more realistic take on what that would be like in this crisis situation, for sure.
We watch a bunch of things that actually have, just that it drops you in. And when you get dropped in immediately, when I first read the first issue, you get the sense that I was trying to piece it all together. And then that was like a couple weeks ago. Then when we went back and kind of went back closer to it, reading all 4 of them together was actually pretty cool, because you realize at the very beginning it was meant to confuse you. And it's almost like the abrupt start to like the whole entire story you're trying to tell. How much of the story do you actually kind of have planned? How many years do you think you can get away with all of these stories? Because it seemed like things were spreading pretty fast.
That's a rough question. I'd say I can at least the next 5 years, guaranteed.
Oh wow, okay. I mean, that's a solid plan.
Yeah.
5 plans for business year, 5 years for business plans, solid.
Oh,
so.
absolutely. I mean, and the thing is we've been creating this story since we were in 7th grade. So we've been with this story for 15 years. So
Wow.
we were kind of fine tuning it through all that time. Obviously, like it took a while to get to where we are, but I think what you're gonna see moving forward is like, you know, it's going to be very different from where we started. And it was really just kind of trying to figure out, because this is like our first comic. This isn't like,
Right.
you know, comic number 3. So it was like figuring out like what works, what doesn't. And like you'll see as you go through the series, like we have a lot of characters. Like we have 8 characters plus a little boy, so 9. And that's a lot of characters. So it's like trying to find the medium where we could show you all these different characters, tell their story, and tell it in an organic way where it worked. And you know, people weren't being foreshadowed, and you know, certain storylines we were pushing forward as we go through the series.
Okay. Interesting comment you had there. You said you've been working on it since 7th grade. One of my questions was going to be what your inspiration was for this, but going back to 7th grade, I imagine the inspiration is a lot different than anything I would think of recently. And you had just mentioned it. How much has the original story changed from where you guys first had the idea to where you're at now? Like, have you had to change with times, or is this basically the same story just kind of brought to date, modernized? You know what I mean?
This story has been, I wouldn't say too much, but heavily reworked, because you can only imagine what the minds of 2 13, 14-year-olds would be when it comes to the story. Just a bunch of crazy stuff happening with no real explanation why. So it's nice to have, because we had the kind of the blueprints to the story, and we're just kind of like, all right, how can we make this a more presentable story that people can actually wrap their heads around? Because the first rendition was a bit crazy, but inspirations, just because we were huge gamers back in the day, so we took a lot of inspiration from like video games, like Left 4 Dead was a big one when we were around that age, and then before that we did play like, you know, all the Resident Evils and watch a lot of the older movies like Dawn of the Dead and stuff like that. So it was a number of things that inspired what this is now.
Okay. Did it start out as story and artwork from you guys, or how long did it take to get from idea in your head to on paper and pictures you can actually see, something tangible you can actually read? Or is this the first time it's been at that point?
We've had a few concepts before before this. So the one you're reading now, we've actually had a few renditions of this before, because we had gone through so many artists prior to this, and we completed a whole first issue, read it, looked at it, said, all right, you know what? I don't think this is it. I think we need to come up with a new plan, or change our tactic, or change the way things look. So we kind of scrapped one issue. We kind of went through a few artists before that. So it was a lot of work and drawings and pictures getting up to what you see right now.
The artwork is on point. I really like the artwork.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's why I was asking that question, like how far you could go, because it seems like you spent a whole lot of time getting to this point, and it looks like it pays off both with the story that you're getting on the page and actually the visual on the page. It's really nice.
Well, the artwork's great. It's very bold lines around the outsides, and it's that it reminds me kind of almost that Man of Tomorrow animated Superman animated movie, the new DC animated movies, the kind of style they use. And I do love that. Like, I love all different types of renditions of artwork, but I do love that bold lines on the chins and accentuating everything. It's just, it gives it a different look. It looks really good. And now the issue we got here is in black and white, or is it going to be in color? Is there a color version, or is it strictly in black and white?
No, so it's black and white, and we kind of like, when Trey was talking about how we were doing issues and we did them a few times, we actually did the first rendition in color, and like we looked at it and we wanted, like, the whole base of RAZE is like horror, and the color for us took away from that. Obviously, like, I love things in color as well. It's not like we didn't want to do our book in color, but we wanted you to have that fear that anxiety as you're reading this issue and be able to, you know, get scared. And it's also a callback to all the old horror movies that were in just black and white. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like a bunch of different things. And we're indie creators, so we were on a budget too. So it was just trying to make it work. And make
very
it
expensive.
Yeah. So
you
got to work what you can.
But I will say, like, Trey's the artist now, and like, you know, I know a lot of comics are in color, but like what he can do on the black, white, and gray scale is incredible. You know, it almost feels like a colored book because, you know, I think the blend of all those different variations of colors that you can do is just like incredible.
Mm. Yeah, and the covers are fantastic too. It almost looks like a splash page from a comic. Every time I get an indie comic creator on here and they have comics, I always in my mind it draws me to a comic that one of the major comics, you know, like what it reminds me of. This reminds me of like a Batman Damned cover, which I hope you take that as a compliment because I think
we do.
I think that's you know it's absolutely beautiful. And then when I see that, I'm like, oh, it kind of reminds me of a Batman Damned cover. I wanted to ask you about this right here too. In every comic, there's this dedication page. Okay.
Yes.
This your mother?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, it's technically both of our moms. Obviously, me and Trey aren't blood relatives, but growing up, all those really bad renditions, she was a part of that. And she was always our biggest fan. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to see issue 1, you know, created. So I always had the mindset of, you know, you always remember these celebrities. If people pick up our issues and they at least say her name or read her name, that she's going to live on past, I think, what her lifespan was, and just she's gonna keep on living on through these comics because she was always the one who was our number one supporter.
I love it.
Yep,
absolutely love it. Trying to think. Let me scroll through this. Ross, you got any questions?
I don't know how much really want to go like into the story that you're actually showing right here. With most people being able to actually see the screen, you had a moment in there where he was doing the trick with the keys and basically saying that, you know, he was going to, if you didn't take us with you, then at the end of the day you weren't gonna be able to go anywhere, period, because you didn't have the keys.
Yes.
When I was watching that whole thing, I'm sitting there trying to figure out, I'm like, man, if I was in that position, like I could just sense it as I was reading it. And I reiterate again, I mean, excellent job, like with the story. The whole little back and forth and the tension you definitely feel.
Yeah, I want to see these two.
Where do you get that from? Where do you pull that kind of personal situations?
I was waiting for it. I was like, man, are they going to fight? I want to see it. So, but maybe down the road we do. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, you have Frankie, who's he's this Southern character who is, you know, he says whatever comes to his mind. And then you have Ian, who's this rich, snobby kid, and you kind of just put them together and they don't know each other. And the last thing they did was crash into each other's car. So it's like, they're already not on a good footing. So it's like, you add that, and then you add this key situation where he thinks he has the keys, but he doesn't. And, you know, it's this very like, I know I'm your solution, so you have to let me in.
Mm-hmm.
And
meanwhile, you're being chased by a horde.
Yeah, exactly.
Through these 4 books here, we didn't see a huge connection with the child. I know I picked up on Ashley, Bucky, Ian, Victoria, and Mark were all the names that I picked up on from the comic. Mark is the child, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Well, I guess I can't say anything spoilers. I picked up on, I feel like there's something more to this kid just based on the little hints and clues we saw here. Just this scene in particular right here where anytime you're about to find out something about somebody and it gets interrupted and you never find out, I'm like, okay, cool. Pay attention to this kid. So it makes me interested to see where this story is going with it. I like little stuff like that. And I said, I can pick up on stuff because we review stuff. And I mean, I'm by no means smart, so I'm sure other people do too. But it was cool seeing that. And I was like, okay, it'd be interesting to see how this plays into effect later. I know you had mentioned about the one character, and we don't know if he's the cause or the cure for this. We're not introduced to this character to this 4th book, right?
Incorrect.
No? Okay.
You're already introduced to him. Do you want me to tell you?
Okay. Well, no, I mean, if it's something spoilers, no.
I mean, it is, but it isn't. This is kind of like me and Trey have talked about this for a while. It's don't get me wrong, it's somewhat spoilery, but this is the whole, I think, story, and it takes us a little bit of time to get there. But can I say it, Trey? Is it okay without spoiling anything?
I mean, go for it, man. You have as much power as I do.
Yeah. So, the main character of the series is Bucky. So the way that plays out, you're gonna see in future issues. But yeah, as we get further in these issues, you're gonna kind of see how that whole plot point is going to play out.
Okay. So the fourth book is kind of a time jump, or a different setting,
different area. Yeah, a little
bit
of a
gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And just so you know, man, we just spoiled that for tens and tens of people in the world who are going to watch it. So. But yeah, it's very interesting. Like I said, the books that I got to see definitely give you a story that you wonder, okay, what's happening? I've got enough meat on this bone to take a nice big bite here, and I want to find out what's going on with the rest of this. So, great job with these four right here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Are these the only four to completion right now?
Yeah, so we're doing Kickstarter on 5 right now, and I can comfortably say that we're about, I would say 85% done with issue 5. And issue 5 is a pretty simple premise. I think even if you haven't read our series before, you can pick up issue 5, and it's an easy read as far as plot goes. And yeah. That's on Kickstarter, so I'm not spoiling anything. The plot for issue 5 is pretty much where issue 4 ends. Is they were trying to pretty much help an infected that was in issue 4. This guy who was newly he's sick, and at the end of issue 4 he's missing, and issue 5 now the kid is missing. So now it's we got to find this kid before this infected finds this kid. Because if we don't find this kid, all hell is about to break loose.
We all know what's going to happen if we don't find this kid.
One question y'all as creators I want to ask. My daughter is an extremely talented artist, and she's just looking at different avenues she can have to use this and later on in her life. I'm telling her about storyboards and comics, and I told her, create a story in your head and write it down, put it on paper and draw it, figure out stuff you can do. I hate whenever I go on a tangent and I totally lose my train of thought. Give me 1 second, I'll find it.
It's okay.
With these comics, with these characters you have, do you draw from your life, like is there anybody that are characters like you guys use somebody in your life to base this character off of, or to give them traits of this character?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, will those be taken to the grave with you? Who those characters are based off of, or do these people know? Hey,
I know one. There's one person who knows who his character is. Actually, Ian is based loosely off of his stepbrother, Antonio. So, and it's not like this in real life, but anytime we're like playing a game where we're getting competitive, he has this persona that comes out that's very much like Ian. So we kind of based it off of that persona of his.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's cool, and that's what I try to tell her is draw inspiration from your life, for characters, because a lot of times you have a story written right in front of you in your life. You just got to put all the pieces together.
Absolutely,
that's really, really cool.
And plot lines too. You guys in the 4th issue had it felt like you were trying to get a little psychological, like with the conversation about was it Victoria killing Joe?
Yes.
And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, what would you? Where would you be in that moment? Is that something that you've ever had to had a real serious sit down with someone? I feel like all the time whenever I'm trying to explain a point to people, they don't understand it. You have to be like, okay, we're going to work through this step by step. It's a huge exchange of back and forth. And so it's curious, how would you put that into a story? Because I see writers do it all the time, but I can't do it.
Yeah. And it was like,
it's also kind of like it just happened. Like this infection's fairly new. It's not like, we've been in the apocalypse for a few years. So killing somebody just makes the most sense, but they're still wrapped around like, can I actually kill a person, infected or not? I'm still killing somebody, So.
Yeah. And there's characters I like that in different like another show that I watched, I can definitely think about. The character makes the exact opposite. Like, no, now the roles have changed. Like, the world is there is a new world order, and it is not natural. Now we have to start killing people.
And yeah, should anything like this ever happen in the real world, it would be it would be something that people would have to come to realization with. You know, it's one of those things. We asked the question, we were discussing this at my job the other day. Somebody asked me, have you ever seen a dead person like ever? And most people in their life, besides maybe a funeral, probably haven't. And just like most people in their life have never killed a person or seen a person killed or anything like that. So it's why people that have done that or that have had to go through that experience is so different than most people have, because we live in a world where that kind of stuff's not normal. But if this ever happened, you better go back to learning how to do that kind of stuff.
You gotta come to quick.
Survival is a must.
It's also too is like, I think me and Trey have talked about is like every issue we kind of bring you into, there's always this overlaying theme. And that was the whole point of the whole, like, hey, we got to go kill this person, because then it like creates this almost like tangent for every character. Where do you stand? Where do you not stand on if you got to kill this person or not? So it then creates a better dynamic for this, you know, the amount of characters that we have.
Nice.
Well, looking forward to finding issue 5. So you said you have plans for the next 5 years, at least stories, at least for the next 5 years, but you're only up to book 5, right? So
yes.
Okay. How often do we think we're going to get a new issue? Is it based on how much support we get?
It's based on support, and it was really, I mean, this year for us has been huge. And the whole goal of this year, because we put out these issues for about 2.5 years now. So we didn't do any marketing. We weren't on really socials that much. And this year I kind of took over and started doing that, getting obviously interviews, talking about obviously our comic, trying to get it kickstarted, doing animation trailers, doing concept arts, like anything we could do to get the name out. So this year was also about focusing about production. I mean, after issue 4, our artist left. So we kind of had to either find a new artist or we just had to pick up the pieces. And we went through a number of artists through this project, to be quite honest. So Trey's the one who kind of picked up the pieces, says, okay, if I'm going to do it, I need to figure out how to do it, because he doesn't have a really extensive drawing background.
Very limited drawing history. Almost nothing.
Yeah.
Well, do you enjoy doing it?
I do. As much as I complain about it, or he hears me complain about it, when I'm finished, it's the most rewarding feeling. But when I'm drawing page 1, I'm like, all right, page 1 is done. I have to do this 23 more times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The order seems so tall. I get you, man.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. Like I used to be really big into drawing. I over the years just have lost that skill and just don't do it anymore. Every once in a while I'll pick something up, but I just couldn't imagine drawing that much and being so good at it. Like it's done really well.
And he does it on his phone. That's like the craziest thing. Like things you guys see in the page previews, that's off of his phone.
Wow.
Like, so very humble, but he is very, very talented.
I had some help. If people learn to draw, there are resources out there that actually are very affordable. Okay. Not a sponsor, but little bit of a plug. There is a Kickstarter called Masters of Anatomy. I recommend anybody learn to draw, check it out, because what's really important, I guess, is for an artist to develop a style. And they have a few books out now. So I got one large book, and they go through different styles, different poses and things like that. And then they come out with another book that goes over facial expression and drawing like hands and things like that. And it's just really intuitive. And that's what kind of helped me a little bit when learning how to jump into this.
Okay. I'll have to actually check that out. Cool. Like I said, my daughter's 15. She loves drawing. I'm father, of course. I think it's fantastic, but it really is absolutely amazing work. So I'll have to look into that for her. Well, fellas, that's the comic. RAZE.
Beautiful.
Fantastic read for what we got so far. I can't wait to see what happens with it next. I'm going to include all your Kickstarter stuff and the information in the show notes. So anybody whose ears this pierces, please check that out. I recommend it. It's a great read, and it's always fun to support, independent creators.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
fellas, I really do appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else y'all want to say about your comic before we get out of here? Ross, is there anything else you wanted to say? Because my notes are spent, but I don't know if Ross has anything else. I'm sorry. I'm kind of closing things up.
I enjoyed the read. It was a fun time, and like I said, everything I said about it is just really enjoyable hearing the story you guys are making.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that.
Good to hear that.
Yeah, man. Well, are you guys on social? Is there somewhere somebody can find you on social that you want to shout out?
Yeah. So we're on. Yeah. So we're on pretty much every social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. You name it, we're on it. All you really have to do is search RAZE Comics, and that's RAZE. So we're on Twitter right now. You can follow our Twitter handle for RAZE Comics. It's just @RAZE Comics. You can follow me, which is just comics_RAZE. My header is 2% milk. I'm probably the only one in the world who has that. We're on Facebook as well. You can just we have a Facebook page. Just search RAZE Comics again. Same thing with Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And our Kickstarter, just search RAZE Comics. We're trying to get this book funded. We're trying to give back to this project. We got a bunch of cool tiers on the Kickstarter, a lot of catch-up tiers, physical and digital. We got a lot of cool rewards going on over there. So if you want to get more immersed into the apocalypse, I highly suggest you come over to the Kickstarter, check it out, and come support us. We need your help.
Love it. Fantastic. Buddy, I will include all that stuff in the show notes. Sam, Trey, thank y'all so much once again.
Yes.
Awesome read. And anything else y'all got in the future, just hit me up and we can put it out there. Like I said,
Absolutely.
tens and tens of people will find out. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Best of luck, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Always fun meeting
Oh,
other
yeah.
creators,
Dude, you just get to see some really. It's tough to imagine like getting in someone's head when you know that you perceive the world in a certain way. Like, what do they think? Like, what would you put on paper if you ever had the chance? And I think it's pretty cool always seeing that, especially from people who, put forth so much effort to get a story out.
Oh, labor of love for sure. It's definitely something I've always wanted to do. Like, I've always had ideas in my head. But then I start to think, and I'm like, I'm not creative enough. Like, I can't even think of a superpower or a name or a like issue that he would fight. And I started thinking, I'm like, no, I can't do that. No, it won't work. It's always used. There's so many out there, but there are creative minds out there that come up with new stuff all the time. So
yeah, man. Look at I was reading an article the other day, and I was talking about how tough it is to branch off of like the big comic titles. Like even like when you're making actual like physical content, and so you try to put like an idea down in a comic book, it seems like one direction, but then you try to come up with like an original idea, like Amazon with The Boys. That comic book was it's weird, like when you put that thing on the big screen and next thing you know, everyone's following it and clamoring after it and trying to figure out what's going on with it.
The Boys is a product of its time. Being a book, it was accepted at the times that it was written, but it would have never flown as a movie or a television show 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Hey, it was a gamble.
They could have, but it wouldn't have been nearly what it is now. Now it seems like everything is so much more acceptable. Well, there are certain hot button issues, but almost everything is acceptable, for streaming. And The Boys definitely takes it to a different level.
Yeah, so, they're getting their third original thing out of that property now. That's what I was saying. They started filming that Gen V show, which is like a college version of The Boys.
Oh yeah, and they have the Diabolic too, right?
And the Diabolic animated show. Yep, the animated show is pretty good. I liked how it danced around the universe, and the animation style is actually being different too. It wasn't like as. I guess you could relate it to Visions. That kind of stuff's really
exactly
cool.
What it was like for me was Visions. Just different story creators coming up with different story. And it was cool, but it was unnecessary. It's nothing you need to see to enjoy The Boys, but it was a cool little thing to have. Speaking of articles you read, anything interesting you want to put out there? The only thing I saw that was really interesting, because I just haven't been paying attention to much, was that picture I sent you earlier about how much more content through each phase Marvel's putting out.
I saw that it was either late last Sunday night or on Monday, and I had saved it, and same thing. Like it's what, over 4 times or close to the amount of 4 times.
Yeah,
Literally
it's
phase 4 to phase 1.
Oh, it's close. 1 through 6, phase 1 is 12.4 hours. Phase 2 is 12.7 hours. Phase 3 is 24.9, and phase 4 so far is 49.5 hours.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's pretty insane.
Over 4 times.
Yeah.
Oh, close. But either way, I mean, like it's, I don't want to keep harping on the same thing, but I feel like I do it with every different DC, MCU, whatever it is. But with MCU, they just have so much. Like they're literally just throwing seeds out and seeing what's going to happen. And like we know where none of this is going, and it has a lot of people pissed off because they don't know what Phase 4 is trying to, like, what story they're trying to tell. And I'm like, you know what I do enjoy? Having all of these different things to watch. Like they came out of nowhere.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's the not knowing thing I think that's pissing people off, because I think at first I was kind of pissed off about it, especially because like I know these stories and I want it this way. Then when I finally accepted it, okay, I'm not going to get these stories exactly the way I want them, but I'm going to get them and it's going to be cool. So I got on that. Now it's not knowing, because I know that at the end, at least in Miss Marvel, there was something that I would have in no way, shape, or form ever effing predicted that we're going to talk about whenever we talk about there. But they do a good job of keeping you on your toes and surprising you with things. Yeah, they're smarter than us. Me, at least. I'm not going to speak for you, but they're definitely smarter than me.
Well, no, they're clearly smarter than me. Look, they're a huge company.
Yeah.
Making all sorts of the money. It's interesting because, like, with the other stuff that we had talked about earlier in the week with the whole VFX strike, or not strike, but the whole VFX people being unhappy, and a lot of people going out and voicing their opinions about their jobs that they have and how they are kind of not wanting to work for Marvel anymore. This is why 49 plus hours of content in what we say at best the past 3 years is probably how long this stuff has been in development for. 3 years, you get 49 hours, and it feels like it just keeps coming nonstop.
Which is so funny, because when you think about 3 years and 49 hours, it seems minuscule. Like it just a minute, 3 days? Oh, okay.
That's why 40 hours a week is too much work for people. I mean, like we got too many people in this world. We don't need to work that long.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things I always, once again, I'm not there, so I don't know. And I always pick on actors to talk about how difficult their job is and this and that. And then you see them, 6 months out of the year doing whatever they want to do type thing. But I'm not there and I don't know. But I did read that article you're talking about the VFX crews and what the stuff they'd gone through. And I think we talked about they need to unionize. You said you think they're too young to unionize. I don't know, man. But
I say they're too young because I mean the battle always is when you're in a thirsty job position like that. Whereas a lot of people have gone to school for that. A lot of people are trying to get those jobs, and so having openings doesn't last very long. But turnover rate ends up being pretty high. But when you're a big company like that, you make these contracts. I mean, the problem that they are unrealistic contracts for the workers. It's hard to fight it because the company still has all the money. And so until the people get pissed off enough to a point to where like, hey, like enough of us will stop coming to work for you until you fix your stuff. That's really what, that whole process would be if they actually do unionize.
Yeah.
I still say most IT is still pretty fresh. Like it's tough to get to get people to come together and be like, you know what? The actors don't need to be making that much money for the amount of work that they come and do to be on screen when you have VFX people that sit there. I mean, dude, every movie that you've gone to in the past decade, 2 decades, the credits keep getting longer and longer and longer. And the fattest place they keep stacking up. Yeah. that's part of the reason why they do that. But no, the fattest sections that keep stacking up are like VFX artists. I mean, like you see names on there. I mean, like they just keep going on for days.
Well, think about how many characters just in the MCU alone are fully CGI. I mean,
it used to be costume and set departments, and like now it's so much CGI.
Well, I can tell you, it sounds like they need to unionize. Yeah, they may be too young to do so, and it is very difficult to unionize because the thing is, if they try to do that and they say, well, we're not coming back, there might be somebody who will come in and say, well, I'll give this a shot at what you were doing there. And until everybody's fed up with it, there's no way that works. I will say, coming from a job that has probably the second strongest union in the country, unions are great and they're horrible because unions protect people for the things they need to protect for, but they also protect pieces of shit for doing pieces of shit things. Now, in this situation, it would be young, it would be starting out. I'm sure in the beginning, everything would be great and it would help out. But eventually, like all unions, I've worked for the railroad, I work for the post office now. 2 strongest unions ever in existence. I guarantee it. It gets to a point where it's abusive and you're unfireable and you can pretty much do whatever you want to do to a certain extent. It's ridiculous for the job. But
it's all up and down.
Necessary in some cases. Yeah, you got to take the evil with the good somehow, or the So.
Yeah, the other side of the fence isn't all that pretty either. But this isn't like an economy, a political show. However much that they actually dive into some of those premises. I mean, I will say, I mentioned to you before we started. I mean, like this kind of goes back to not being political, but breaking the law. Or being in the court for the issues that you have with the Aquaman and Flash panels being canceled. And they kind of affected what DC's bringing to San Diego Comic-Con. And which Comic-Con looks like it's going to be interesting. First live Comic-Con in 2 years. Mm-hmm. Physical Comic-Con, I guess I should say, in 2 years. 3 years? I think it was 19 was the last one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't get to go to the physical one, so I'm loving the digital stuff they're putting out.
Yeah.
You know? But, I mean, I get them having the physical. People still want to go to that. So, hopefully they'll still continue with the strong digital presence,
Yeah,
it's always fun. Does it seem like everything from Zack Snyder's DC is somehow or another torpedoed? Like, somehow, minus Wonder Woman. Every character is somehow or another torpedoed, and it's like, well... We're not doing that anymore. So
that's
don't get me wrong. I'm not defending Ezra Miller.
Oh no,
I'm not defending Ezra Miller. Don't get me wrong.
No, but it's I haven't really compared the two, but it's funny because now you watch in live time the people getting pissed off that the MCU isn't connecting anymore. Like it doesn't make sense because nothing's touching each other. It's all in its own bubble right now, and DC has slowly transitioned to, was it the DC multiverse on HBO Max or whatever, like the heading for that section is called. Mm-hmm. And it's ironic having to go back and watch everyone get pissed off now at the MCU. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Like the Zack Snyder side of it, I mean, you said it countless times before. If they just would have given the man, the keys to start the kingdom, a little bit more than what they gave him, you could have got something completely different.
Yep.
So, hey, I don't know what. I don't have answers, man.
Yeah.
They keep changing their minds like every time they turn around. Then the company keeps getting sold. The next thing you know, new people get brought in, and
mm-hmm. It just sucks because there's like almost no prayer of continuity without a complete we're hitting the reset button completely. Hitting the reset button and starting over. And, it's like, well, it feels like they tried to do that years ago and they got a little footing. And now there's just reminiscence of that left kind of lingering mm-hmm. around in the universe of the new universe they're trying to rebuild. And it's just like, it's just, I don't know. It's weird, but
I hope that they do. And I think that what any smart company is doing right now is, the only one that's come out and said it was Lucasfilm and Star Wars. And when Kathleen Kennedy says, they're trying to get people that are going to be devoted to directing and being a part of these movies, because they're seeing the success of it with the Favreau Filoni side, mm-hmm. and like the where they call has been nicknamed the Mandalorian television universe or whatever it is, and you get that, you feel that, but it also. Like they tell a different story. It's closer to a story that people want to be a part of. Mm-hmm. So when you do it with the Star Wars side of it, you want that same kind of feeling in the movies. You want to bring that continuity back. Right. And DC needs to take that page, and they need to get directors, and they need to get a team on board. But they don't need to go too crazy because you get something like what is the Star Wars circle called up top? The people who hold all the knowledge. Like, you need that to a certain extent. You need people to not contradict. Like, Batman can't fly. right? Like simple enough, simple universe rules. Beyond that, all you need is just a decent planned out story,
right?
And you don't have to plan the whole entire thing. It just has to work so that you can tell it long term.
And the funny thing is, you don't even have to write a story. There's years and years and years of story written.
Yeah.
You just got to translate it to a movie.
All Marvel's doing is
make it make
adapting
sense.
stuff right now.
Yeah.
They just adapt it and, pull pieces out where they want to, and it works for them. A lot of people hate Marvel villains over the time that Marvel has been around. The MCU has been around. But at the same time, it's allowed them to keep going back to the well, because you can't make anything in comic books extremely final. The finality of killing off a character, like when they killed off Robert Downey Jr., like that was the moment, like no more.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring it back, it has to be on certain grounds, a flashback or visual or like, something crazy. So
Force Ghost,
Right. There you go.
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you right now, man, if I ever become a millionaire, multimillionaire, whatever, Zack Snyder's Justice League universe will be reborn. I will pay the man. He will direct it. Affleck, Godot, come on. I will pay all of y'all. Do it in my backyard. I don't even care. Hire all the VFX team. We will have the completion of that story.
There's so many things that people keep talking about when it comes to that. It's like, Sarah sent that thing about Voyager, right? So Star Trek Voyager, the cast members are trying to get together and talk and see like possibly like what could happen. But CBS, I guess CBS and Paramount just rebooted. Is it Criminal Minds? One of those, like, I don't know if you ever watched Criminal Minds, but like a profiling style show.
Mm-hmm.
And they're bringing all the cast back. It's the same thing. Like, you had the cast. If you could do X-Men again, we just saw Xavier on screen for Doctor Strange. Well, we saw Patrick Stewart as Xavier on screen, and so like it's cool to be like, man, if I get all those toys back, put them all back up next to each other, they're gonna look super cool.
Yeah,
I'll be awesome if I have all the toys that I wanted to play with again.
Yeah,
I would do it too.
Speaking of Professor X, I saw a thing on Twitter earlier. Somebody sent it to me about Esposito being rumored as being cast for Professor Xavier. I replied, while I love the actor and I think he could do the role, there's something about Patrick Stewart in that role that until I see somebody else do it physically and do it well, I won't. And I mean, I know we got the McAvoy version, but I'm talking about the older version of Xavier. Until I see somebody else in that role and do it well, I won't get excited about anybody else doing it. But if Esposito is cast as that role, and I don't know any validity, I think it was from We Got This Covered. So I don't know. Yeah, you can't trust that site. Like I said, it was just something somebody sent to me. No validity to it whatsoever. But it was just like, I thought about it and I was like, I really do like him as an actor. He's a great actor.
So that's what makes it so iconic, is that you automatically label Patrick Stewart to that role.
Mm-hmm.
And the tough part is that Xavier is one of those roles that the delivery makes the difference. Mm-hmm. The delivery is where you're going to make it or break it with that character on screen. And so if he comes on and, if he sounds like Edgar in The Boys, I'm like, you're trying to sound smarter than you probably are. Like, Xavier is a smart guy, but Xavier is he's very even keel on the surface. Like, every time you read in a comic book, like, I've always read Xavier pretty monotone, except for when you knew he was screaming.
See, I was gonna say that's actually the change that I want, because that is in the later storylines. He is more, but like in the originals and like the first few issues, because I secretly have every X-Men issue ever made from from when it first came out to like 2010 digitally. So I've gone back and read like all the original stuff, and like he is a dick. He is an absolute dick when it first starts out, and I'm like, okay, I kind of want to see that version of Xavier. I want to see an asshole,
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, you got to imagine. I'm like, dude, I've always said, like, how can you have such a power like that? Any mental power, I feel like it would screw with me way too much. Like, you hear all these people talking, ooh, you got voices in your head.
Well, that's the reason why he's top of the chain,
Yep.
Well, did you have any news you want to put there? You want to go ahead and break down Ms. Marvel?
Yeah. What was I going to ask you about? Oh, did you watch? There's trailers this week. Did you watch the Ring of Power trailer? The Lord of the Rings show?
I want to say that I might have seen it, but I don't remember it, so I probably didn't. I think it may have been footage I've seen before or just stuff I'd read about before. So no, I don't think
It's
I've
looking
seen
pretty
it.
decent.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I would get out of it. The show, like as like a whole. I mean, like, next month we start picking up shows like crazy. But Rings of Power comes out, I think, on the 2nd of September, and I realized I watched that other show on Amazon. The God, the name's escaping me. Anyway, I realized after watching it, I heard someone else use a descriptive way to talk about another show one time, and they were like, "It's very young adult." And I'm like, "That's what that show was." I've read the books. The story was pretty good, but like when they put Wheel of Time, when they put it on screen, it was very like young adult to me.
The previews look great, but it looks like a CW show, to be truly honest with you. It looks like a CW show with better graphics.
So I am happy that Rings of Power is definitely looking not that way.
I'm excited for it. We'll watch it. We'll cover it. I'm not going to lie, though. Lord of the Rings is one of my all-time favorite trilogies. It's probably top 3 up there for me as far as just superior trilogies go. I didn't get that from the Hobbit series. Like everything after the first 3 Lord of the Rings movies, I haven't been kind of really excited about or hasn't blown me away. So I don't want to be disappointed with it. But I'm hopeful that it's going to be good because it's a fantastic universe with great characters and stories. I don't know. I'm not going to dive too far into it until it comes out, and then when it comes out, and I found it's helped me out a lot lately. But yeah, I mean, it's Lord of the Rings, so it's definitely got my money already if I had to buy it, which I am streaming. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to be disappointed by a trailer, you can watch the Monsters trailer.
The Monsters trailer?
Yeah, when they're bringing that show back. I think Rob Zombie's doing it.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I saw a trailer for some movie the other day with Owen Wilson in it where he's a superhero.
Yeah, it's on Paramount.
Yeah, I was like, that looks a little Galaxy Quest.
I was thinking Spy Kids, not Spy. Yeah, maybe Spy Kids. I don't know.
It
felt like one of those types of movies.
Yeah, I was like, this may be something that might want to watch with my kids, but I don't think I want to watch it by myself.
Yeah, I remember seeing like the very first headline. I was like, Owen Wilson as a superhero, and I'm like, well, that's clearly that's a money grab if I've ever seen one.
You're starting off wrong already, buddy. Like starting off wrong already. But... All right, well, let's go ahead and break down Miss Marvel then, man. Finale this week. We've been impressed with this show so far. As far as the finale goes, I'm not gonna lie, man, I wasn't super impressed with the finale. There were certain things about it that I was like, that was really well done. I'm glad they did this. I'm glad they did this. There are other things in this finale that I looked at, and then now that I go back and think about the show, they've done it a couple times, and I'm like, that doesn't sit with. They need to work on this. And as we break it down, I'll talk about it. But it wasn't a perfect finale, but it wasn't bad. You know, and the show overall, I enjoyed.
Yeah,
I liked it more than Falcon and Winter Soldier.
So I think that what I like, my biggest takeaway is that as big of a person as Miss Marvel is to me in the Marvel Universe, I thought that the show was pretty good. Mm-hmm. You know, it was real fun. The music and the culture, and just the fact that you were able to tell like a teenager story without it really seeming super teenager. Mm-hmm. You know, I go right back to we talk Stargirl. It didn't feel Stargirl. It didn't feel very CW-ish. It had its moments where, they started dipping their toes, but really in the big scheme of it, I mean, it felt like, I don't know, it felt like, it's going to be a weird description, I guess more vibrant. It felt like it was, you didn't hit those steep levels of corniness where I felt like I hit in Stargirl sometimes.
Right.
It was cool to see.
Feels like a fake universe.
Yeah.
This feels like real world.
Right.
A little more real. I won't say exact, but a little more real world. Yeah.
Everything that having the VFX artists being pissed off, I totally get, because, man, they do make it look good. They make all the stuff that I see look really good in this show. Mm-hmm. I've loved all of the stuff that they've added in from the very beginning, from the trailer. Everything just looks awesome. And when we got the 6 episodes of the show, as we worked through each episode, it felt like it was getting more and more realistic, because it was really honing in on her as someone really fast learning to be a superhero. and then all the family stuff. I mean, it told a real fast story.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it had to do more work than some of the other shows like Falcon Winter Soldier that we already know their history,
and everything.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the downfalls of this show is I think it was rushed. I think that this should have been an 8 or 10 episode series.
I thought the same thing with
they could have gotten a lot more out of it. The finale felt really rushed. Like, we'll go ahead and start breaking it down. The turn of Cameron, is that his name? To almost be Cameron being kind of the bad guy at the end. Just wasn't enough there for me to get him to turn that quickly or to get him it's just like, it's not, it feels forced. Like it feels forced to have a problem because realistically there is no villain in this series. It's more the big villain is trying to figure out where she is and what she is. That's the big problem. So they had to put some kind of villain in there, something to fight other than the what's the cleanup crew they have there?
Oh, Damage Control.
Damage Control, which is so creatively named. Which is funny because Marvel normally does a really good job creatively naming stuff like that, and Damage Control is just like, well, okay. Yeah, but I feel like that turn for him was just a little too fast, too forced, and the fact that like 3/4 of the episode he's injured and can barely walk and has to have somebody help him move, and then like all of a sudden in one scene he just starts running and he's fine the rest of the episode, and I was like, okay.
It was a real weird. The second half of this show, it told a lot. Like you said, I mean, like it's rushed. I mean, there's a whole lot going on, but I'll talk about the villains first. How do you have a teenager with a pretty limited rogues gallery start off? Exactly. Superman has super strength, not Superman, I'm sorry, Spider-Man, super strength, super sense, super, I mean, just kicks into him overnight, and it's more about him learning how to deal with that. But him being so powerful allows him to get the crap beat out of him, to turn around and become even better than he was when the movie started. Mm-hmm. I think it's harder to do that with Miss Marvel. Mm-hmm. You have someone who is learning a lot at once, but really doesn't know how to use any of it. And you're not super strong, so that just doesn't come to you. You're not, the super sense doesn't kick in, so you don't have to learn to hone it in like Spider-Man or Superman. Every time we see a Superman background legacy story, it always has a moment in there where he's trying to come to terms with like his ability to see through things and to hear things super crazy. Right. It always gives you that. Miss Marvel doesn't have that. It's literally like she got a bracelet and she's figuring out why it makes her glow. Which, to the Kamran side of it, the whole thing about the mom and the veil, it all felt like it was happening really fast. Mm-hmm. They didn't go into nearly enough there to really help the average viewer out to get through, because his powers were way too close to Kamala's to really not explain that. Mm-hmm. I know that they're both Jinn or clandestine or like whatever they want to label themselves, but I felt like there should be like a little bit more there.
Yeah. Well, and the other issue I had with him too was, there's that moment where, he's talking to Kamala and he's talking about, this is his home. He's got to go, or like the other realm is his home. He's got to go back there. And if it's going to take over here, whatever. I'm like, dude, you were born here. You've lived here your whole life. Like, yeah, you're racist from there, but this is your home. Like, if you go back there, you're going to feel really out of place, I'm willing to bet, because you've never been around any of that. This is your home. And I'm sure that as the character story progresses, that's going to be what he comes to realize, But it just, I don't know, man. Like I said, the whole thing with him seemed a little forced, and it was rushed. They needed more episodes of the show. And I would have taken more episodes because it was, for the most part, really well done, and I enjoyed the story. There was also the scene. Okay, so at the end, there's the big fight scene at the end, with the Damage Control and Cameron and Kamala, and then there's the moment where the whole crowd surrounds her, which is nice. It was cool seeing the acceptance of her, and the cops get in line and they stop and they're not letting Damage Control through, right? Then Damage Control just walks right through. Nobody even tries to stop him. Like the cops stood in front of him, like, you're not getting through, and then they literally just walked right by him. the cops didn't even try to stop him. I was like, are you serious? Like, what's the point of forming a mob around her if everybody's just going to let him walk right through?
Yeah, just getting puffy chest, and they made a real stiff about face when they were making that cop line. I was sitting there trying to figure out the same thing. Like, what is it that you're exactly trying to achieve? Are you really just trying to make it harder for you to walk to get to her?
Yeah.
Because if so, you are accomplishing your goal, my friend. Beyond that, no, I have no idea.
Oh.
I like the battle that they were having in the high school. It made a lot of sense to use things that, they did a pretty good job. The elephant snot, they did the using the softballs. The fact that Zoe came back, which I thought Zoe was going to be, the spoiled girl the whole entire show, but we really kind of lost her after the
second or third episode. Yeah,
real
that's
early
what I'm saying.
On.
It feels really rushed. You got the one scene of her where she says, they wanted me to give you up, but I wouldn't. And they also never explain how she knows it was Kamala, or did I just forget that? Did she find out?
Oh, she was basically saying that she was saying she had a really good camera on her phone, so she was able to zoom in to really see who it was, which is something I've always said all along. It's like, at what point are you not going to be your secret identity not going to be figured out? But it was pretty funny because we're right on the nose with it.
Well, that is what's funny is by the end of this, everybody around there knows her secret identity. She still wears a mask, but it looks better. So it looks good.
Oh, she walks right off of her front porch.
Like,
in uniform,
knows exactly where you are. What's the point in wearing it? I get it.
I thought it was cool that the mom made the costume, and I thought that it was cool that come full circle at the end of the episode, the dad gives her the name.
Yes. And
so,
I was wondering when the episode was ending. I was like, okay, they're going to give her name by the end of this episode. How are they going to do it? And I thought it was going to be Miss Marvel, because I was like, Carol Danvers is going to show up. I was like, and that's going to be the name. But the way they did it was really cool. I like that. The meaning of her name, it's
really touching.
Yeah, really, really well done. The other issue I had with this episode especially, and I noticed it a couple times before, they escape really easily. Like they'll be in a building that's surrounded by 50 people, and there'll be 25 people walking inside the building, and somehow they get through the whole building unscathed and get away. Then they just get outside the building, and all of a sudden nobody's chasing them anymore. And it's like, you didn't even get away. Like, you just got out of the building and nobody's chasing you. Or I don't know.
Oh, when Kamala and Kamran
at the end of this one, yes. But even in previous episodes, there's one where they're running away. Oh, it was when they're at the dance and the clandestines attack. And it's like, how does this work? You know what I mean? Like, how do you get away from the situation? How is there the damage control outside literally at that time, and they don't come in? Like, the escape routes for them to get away throughout the story were kind of like, I don't know. They really just kind of half-assed the way they escaped the danger. But it's a little thing. It was just something I noticed.
I think damage control is going to be like the same thing that SHIELD and other things have been in the past. I think it's kind of a reason to have something like another entity there.
Mm-hmm.
With right now, they're making the entity seem bad. Kind of like the same thing they did with SHIELD. We didn't know what Phil Coulson was going to be in the very beginning of this whole entire MCU thing. True. So damage control is kind of the same way. Now, clearly they have different weapons and prisons at their disposal, but to show how out of place that one damage control agent was, kind of was the antagonist, right? Adults are always buttholes. That's what the kid's point of view. So, if you really look at this from like the intended audience that it's probably shooting for, then that woman can kick rocks as far as most people are going to consider.
Yep. Okay, so there is the one thing in here, the last thing that kind of it didn't make me upset, but it really threw me off. And now, like, my mind is spinning 100 miles an hour. And I don't know if you picked up on it. I'm sure you did, though. And it's Bruno talking to Kamala about her DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And did you notice the moment he says mutation, what happened? They played the X-Men music. And I was like, is this how they're bringing mutants into the MCU? Is this because I would have never in a million years. Now, it may not be, That could have just been a throwaway reference or just something that's going to mean something later.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like it is a, it works backwards, so I can't call it a footnote, but I mean, like it's a
seed.
It's a sprinkle,
Yeah.
They're just going to start throwing a little here and a little there. Then you're going to come to realize that, mutant's probably going to mean something different. It might have the same like genealogical purpose, but it may mean something in this universe.
I just hope that for the sake of the mutant story, they don't retcon this into making her like the first mutant.
Oh no, I don't think you're going to get that.
I still don't know how they're going to do this because the X-Men have a history that go back years. So, and I know other characters did too, but it's a little different. Like their history has to do with the building of their characters, whereas other characters not so much. You can just advance them to starting out in 2006, and it being okay. I don't know, man. Marvel's got me wondering. Like the wheels are turning. I have no idea what's going on. I just heard that little, and I was like, oh shit! Like I got goosebumps, and I did. Ears perked up. It was like throwing a bat signal, man. It was crazy.
Yeah, I was paying attention to the conversation, and then as soon as it dropped, it was like, ooh. But I'm here to tell you, like now that I'm thinking about it with you describing it, I can say that I am probably, once again, if it's done well, I'm happily in the camp that they can update the X-Men story. I don't think that it has to have the same roots the whole entire time. It can't be astronomically different, but the plot line of their past can be different. They do the same thing when they talk about how maybe something that happened in World War II or Vietnam, but to make it current, a lot of times stories will jump to like the Iraq-Afghanistan war. And so they'll change like the premise, like the concept's still there, but they update it. I'm interested now that I'm thinking about it, how they could do that. And it's kind of something I'm probably going to think about for a minute because that could be really cool. I can get behind it if it's done right.
It's something I don't want, but if done well, I'll be okay with it.
Yeah. Imagine, a modern day Wolverine storyline, like, you could do it and just change things. I mean, he can still have a past that goes back, but maybe, Wolverine has been all over the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where does he really date back to? How long is he boned before he turns adamantium? How many times are we going to tell?
That would be one of the easier ones to retcon. I think, to be honest with you, the only one that would be difficult to retcon would be Professor X and Magneto. They're kind of the head of the snake in the X-Men. They're definitely top of the food chain, and it's just changing them would be different. But you're right, you can even make it something, about a grandfather's past, or like you said, this happened in World War II, but nothing's affected by it until this year, and blah blah. So I get it.
Yeah, and see,
I'm just interested how they're going to do it.
I would be much happier if instead of getting an X-Men movie, you start getting. I've always liked the idea of doing an Avengers style storytelling of the X-Men. Give them all some movies. Turn something into it. You could easily do a one-off Storm movie. Give me, when you watch the opening to the old X-Men animated show, and you start to see you see how Cyclops becomes, you see how each of them kind of slowly become, or like it goes to like their hero mode, right? All of a sudden they're wearing a suit and they're a team. That would be cool in slow motion. I don't know how long they could do that, but once again, we started off this conversation with Marvel earlier in the show about how they have quadrupled their amount of screen time. So it's totally possible.
But dude, all I know is I want hip belts on Cyclops, and what was the other thing I wanted from the more and more I look at this Boss Logic picture, the more and more I want Daniel Radcliffe as Wolverine. And I know it's Boss Logic.
So
he can
much mass on
dude,
that.
He can draw a picture of a piece of shit, and I would like it. Put together a piece of shit, and I would like it. But
I just can't see it. I want to, but I just don't see the kid putting on that mass.
I mean, I don't see it being probably at least a year or two before anything ever happens anyway, if it does. I don't know the plans for Wolverine, but with the professionals they have and being an actor, it wouldn't take long to put on that much muscle. I mean, think about it. You got somebody waking you up and feeding you, running you through training every day.
Yeah.
When you've got somebody juicing you up like that, it's easy. You know,
They're
guys
just
like me and
so
you,
skinny.
guys like me and you, it's not that easy. But guys like them, man, it's easy. When you're getting paid to do it and somebody's getting paid to make sure you do it, it's a
That's
lot
why
easier.
actors get paid so much when you ask that question.
Part of a reason, yeah. And I don't think honestly, I don't have as big of a deal with actors, the money they get paid. I don't think actors are insanely overpaid. Athletes now, holy crap, they're insanely overpaid, like ridiculously overpaid. But I don't think actors get paid an insane amount of money. I just hate here. I think they make too much money to complain as much as they do. But once again, I'm not there. I don't know all of their downfalls and everything they go through, so I can't really accurately say that without sounding like an asshole. But I mean, I'm an asshole. I can't help it.
Well, let's circle back here since we're
chasing
things away. What else was there? The mosque scenes were interesting. Who do you think picked up Kamran? He was supposed to go to the
that was the guy from the Red Dagger, the guy she met. I
thought that was back in Karachi. I'm trying to figure out who you think would have been the carrier or the courier of the person.
Well, I know it showed
to go to the shipyard.
Well, it showed him at the end walking up and sitting down at the table next to that kid. So I
thought it was him already going.
Yeah, I assumed it, but you're right. That may have been them already gone. That may have been them on the ship. Yeah, I'm not sure. But so Tizzy said actors are overpaid. They play pretend, and athletes actually do something. True. But to be fair, actors are just playing a game too. in the grand scheme of things, they're just playing a game, and $230 million guaranteed for 4 years to play a game and work out. It's a lot of money. That's all I'm saying.
Anyone who makes more than I make gets paid way too much.
I see you reading this. You may as well. What's up, Tim? How you doing, man?
What up, man?
Getting dizzy. I'm assuming you probably just got off the Friday Free for All and C3 Panthers podcast, which I recommend everybody checking out before the show comes on. A lot of Panthers news going on. I hate to mix blood here, or cross streams on podcasts. But man, a lot of good Panthers news coming on. All right, so sorry. Back to Captain Marvel. Let's talk about the post credit scene. That's our Danvers reveal right there. So I have absolutely no effing idea what happens here. No explanation. We haven't seen anything about this at all. Do you think this is where we start out the next Captain Marvel movie?
Well, I don't know if it's. I mean, I would assume that it's a Captain Marvel movie, but they're just labeling it The Marvels. So clearly, she's going to be in it with Miss Marvel and Spectrum. Is that what we said?
Yeah, I think
Spectral.
Yeah,
Spectral. Whichever Rambo's name is. Either way, I was confused because I didn't know, if they were pulling a Freaky Friday or if they were doing a full on transport thing. From the only article that I read, the showrunner said that apparently that was Carol Danvers, that was Captain Marvel. So they did a 1-for-1 full swap, teleported to where each of them were. So it'd be really interesting to learn where Carol Danvers was beforehand.
Yeah.
Where did she come from? Where did Kamala just go to?
There's a lot of other planets in the universe that need help. So apparently, according to Carol Danvers, because she's had her movie and 12 minutes of screen time since then. So
she's got her hair back.
The most powerful being. Yes. I'm glad she got the hair back.
I wasn't too crazy of a fan of the short hair Miss Marvel.
No. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, so I like the suit. I thought it looked really well done. I've always been a fan of what MCU does with suits. However, I think that DC does have just a step up on suits than Marvel does. Marvel still does amazing suits, but this one looks really good, fitting for the character. The CGI when she goes full crystal, the CGI was great. It looked weird because she's so big and the head's so small. And I get it. I know that's game and the comic and everything. It's realistic. I get that. It just looked weird. But as far as the CGI and it actually working, it worked. I just got to get used to that character in like super stretch mode.
Yeah. It's once again, it's always been the hot spot for this show. Mm-hmm. How are they going to actually show her powers? And it's weird that they're showing her powers that way. But I mean, I'm fine with it. She used them big, and that's the big thing in the comic books. It's something that she kind of says here and there. You gets dropped in there, and so like that was like their callback. So
yeah. Look, Tinted says, have y'all noticed the CGI now in Marvel is kind of shifty? I think that this ties back into what we were saying about is there might be a strike with CGI or VFX employees because of the abuse they're having and everything they're going through. We have 49 hours of content in phase 4 so far, which is double what we've had in the most beforehand, or phase 2.
Yeah, because the crazy thing is that
earlier Marvel movies, I don't think that it's worse compared to earlier Marvel movies. I think, like Ross said, this is kind of a hang-up people had. You either don't have a problem with or like what they do with Miss Marvel, or you absolutely hate it. But I think the only people I've seen that absolutely hate it are people who are diehard fans, which I hate to say it for Miss Marvel, I'm talking a lot of trash. It's not a huge crowd. She doesn't have a huge following. So,
yeah, no, it's look, I'll only go back on to the VFX conversation to say this. They give them a deadline that's pretty unrealistic to begin with, and then when they have that deadline, they're meant to provide options. Mm-hmm. So that's essentially doing 5 times the work if you want 5 options.
Right.
You're not just animating something once and saying, hey, that's cool, go with it. So they're making them do so much stuff. They're also putting these shows out so fast that who knows, like, if they're just making the wrong call. Sometimes something looks cool on a big screen that does not translate very well to like a small screen. It's just, it looks cool when you're in a movie theater and the screen's so big that your eyes can't, pick up on certain other problems or other things that are happening. But on the small screen, you're like, ooh, that doesn't look nearly as good as it did when we went to go see it in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here, I don't think you have a very solid way to show how Miss Marvel truly works. And if they spent that much time on it, instead of doing 5 renditions of what would have been 1 VFX shot, they could maybe have spent time to do 1 and make it look halfway decent. Mm-hmm. But when's the last time you watched any sort of like stretchy VFX on screen, CGI on screen, and been like, that looks awesome?
Yeah.
That works.
That's true.
So
Tin Tizzy in the chat says Iron Man suit detail is fucking beautiful. Compare that to the new suit, and it's not even comparable. With that, I will agree. However, I think, Tin, that comes down to preference. His first suits that we had were iron that we're looking at. It's a lot. It's a lot easier to portray iron. The last suit we're looking at, it's nanotech, so it looks almost liquid. So it's 2 different looking suits. I personally, like you, I like the Mach 1, Mach whatever it was, but Iron Man 1. I like that old school Iron Man look better than the newer stuff. But Iron Man does continually change his suit throughout the comics, progressive throughout the year. So they kept
the
up
last
well with
one,
that.
what, 85? And so if the last one that he dies in is Mark 85, I mean, that's 85 suits.
Yeah, a lot of suits we didn't see. So he says,
I'm with you there too. The nanotech suit,
yeah, it is. Mm-hmm. He said he meant everyone else's stuff. I think that has to do with a combination of things, man. More stuff to produce now and less time to do it in. Those 2 combinations just make it more difficult. Sometimes they're cutting corners. The thing is, though, even though they're cutting the corners, we're still going to go see it. We're still going to love it. We're still going to, we have little things here and there we pick on about it. And especially with us doing reviews like this, we're going to nitpick every little thing about it. But overall, still really, really enjoyable. But
come out with stuff so fast. I mean, this is literally the first time in how many weeks that, it's kind of like a little lull. Yeah. And there's shows to watch.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as stuff we would cover, yeah, I mean, we've had at least 3 or 4 shows straight for the last, I don't know, few months to cover. And this week it was just this one show. Well, and then, I watched the Terminal List too. But yeah, as far as just weekly stuff we're covering, you're right, it is kind of a lull.
Just like 10, I started watching that Resident Evil show. I have not heard any great reviews on this show, but at the same time too, it's Resident Evil. It's based on a video game that I can't tell you that I've seen past the second or third Resident Evil movie with Mia Jovovich.
Yes.
But to be honest with you, I mean, like once I saw the first one, you saw all of them, and so now that I'm seeing the show on Netflix, I'm like, it does a bunch of jumping back and forth, and it took me a minute to get used to that, but I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention to it. Mm-hmm. Seems good though so far.
Yeah, that's one of the I've seen a couple of the movies, the game obviously when I was younger. I think for me personally, the only reason I watched the movie was because of Amelia. Like, she's always been one of the top numbers on the list. But I don't know. It's something that I would watch to check out and see cool. But it's just don't really have a lot of love for the franchise or history with the franchise. But I don't know.
Yeah. Here we are now with not a whole lot of things to watch for a couple weeks. We'll have Comic-Con next week, and that'll be kind of interesting just to see what they kind of put out from it. We're already getting trailers and stuff, so we got to see a look at the She-Hulk costume a little bit closer up. It looks like they're kind of taking the costumes a little different too. Kind of circling back to Miss Marvel, they had the Captain Marvel costume. Carol Danvers' costume was actually done in the same like print style fabric, like that 3D printed costume stuff that they're doing nowadays, to match the Miss Marvel costume.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're kind of taking a look, if they're trying to advance it, making it a little different, or what the deal is, but it seems to be going okay. Be interested to see what else they do with it. I think we get that's what I was going to say, that She-Hulk look. I'm wondering like how they're going to kind of style that. I'm interested to see how She-Hulk's going to look. VFX has a lot on that.
I'm going to go into She-Hulk the same way I went into Miss Marvel. It doesn't look like something that I'm going to enjoy, but I have no problem being wrong in the situation. If I'm wrong, then I get something great. And I mean something great. Just something that if Marvel just plays normal golf, it should be fine. If they have a par day, it should be fine. So,
shoot, I mean, they just started talking about filming Ironheart. Like, we know Secret Wars is kind of kicked off. We know that they're filming Armor Wars. I mean, like, there's so much stuff.
I want to be in the room, man. I want to see the storyboards. Of course, Comic-Con, we're going to get a bigger plan here coming up pretty soon, I'm sure, or at least
D23. D23, you will.
Okay. Well, that's not too far away.
No.
So, all right. Well, is there anything else on Miss Marvel you want to talk about? I mean, overall, I think we enjoyed the show more than we thought we would, or at least I know it more than I thought I would. It's not the best thing in the world, but I would recommend it to people. Like, it's good enough for me to be like, "Hey, you should check it out. Yeah. It's a fun time."
It's 6 episodes. It's a quick watch. I mean, this is something, people stream stuff nowadays. We talked about Umbrella Academy last week or the week before, and we were talking about how you just binge straight through it. It's the same kind of thing. These Marvel shows are completely binge worthy and easy to actually do so. You have some of them have gotten second seasons, like Loki and What If, but really they're all kind of just one-off short shows. I mean, there's not a whole lot to them. We get to see the payoff in this come the movie in a year, but
well, the formula they're using right now, where they're introducing characters in shows and then bringing them into movies, or at least what I think they're doing, is a pretty good formula.
Yeah.
You get a lot of. You can basically have the first 2 movies of the character with a 6-part series or an 8-part series to learn about it, and then put them in a movie and have to worry about less movies going on screen. People seeing less movies.
They get to try out directors too. That's what I was talking about with the Filoni thing, with the Favreau and Filoni thing. If you have television shows, you can test out all sorts of people that want to be a part of it.
That's true. 6-part series at Flunks is a whole lot easier to just toss and not do again than a movie.
The guys who did, was it the guys who did this show are doing, is it Batgirl? Is Batgirl the movie?
Yeah.
So like, I mean, they're dipping their toes in both universes.
In theaters in UK and streaming in the US, which is like, why would it not just be streaming in theaters in the US? I'm sure it's going to be in theaters in different places in the US.
Whatever, man. Yep.
Cool. Well, you want to go ahead and move on?
Yep.
Away from Marvel? Cool deal. We got all that stuff coming up, and we'll continue coverage. But let's move on to The last thing we have to talk about is Terminal List. Ross, I know you had mentioned it to me about 3 weeks ago that you'd seen a preview for it, and you were like, "Oh, I want to check that out." And I don't know, I'd heard about it, but I didn't know anything about it other than Chris Pratt was in it. Then, my wife wakes up the next morning. We're laying in bed. And she looks at something watching TV. She sees Chris Pratt. It's what we're watching. I was like, okay, cool. I'm fine with that. No problem. Let's watch some. I think this might have been Chris Pratt's best acting job I've ever seen. I don't know if he's just as he's grown up as an actor, because he's done a lot of stuff. This right here was a different level of Chris Pratt. Not much comedy at all. Usually you get some kind of comedy with this guy, but this one was just a real serious look. And for the role he's playing, it was something he needed to do. But I was highly impressed with his take on this character, the storyline that went through. This is the show that first I thought it was a movie when I started. I didn't realize it was a 10-part series, but I'm glad it was. Got a whole lot more. Or 8-part series, one of the two, I can't remember. The first 2 or 3 episodes, I'm having a hard time figuring out if it's real or not. Like, they do such a good job of and that's why when I try to describe it to people, I don't want to describe a whole lot, because that gives away the first 2 or 3 episodes, which, by the way, this is spoilers right now, so we're going to talk about it. The first 2 or 3 episodes, you don't really know if what's happening is happening or if it's in his mind. And I'm freaking out the whole time. I'm like, man, if this is all in his mind, I don't know where they're going with this. What's going on? The stories. I described it to people who had seen it as, if you liked Reacher, it's Reacher, but more real world. I think the acting and the action scenes are just as good, but Reacher seemed like it was a different universe. It didn't seem like something. I don't know. It did feel like something you would see in America, but just I don't know. I guess this felt more real to me than Reacher did.
Yeah, they kind of they pin it in a different the background story. So Reacher's out. Reacher's a retired major out. I mean, really just lone wolfing it across the country.
Mm-hmm.
This is an actual story about a commander that's in the military, a Navy SEAL.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything is planted. There is no Reacher has that flexibility. This guy takes what he wants, and to some extent, without a whole lot of consequences from his actual job, I guess we're spoiling everything, to really go back and find the killers of his family. And you're right, the state of confusion that they drop you in, they keep you in for the first little bit of this movie, is really good. And that state of confusion is kind of what drew me to it when I saw the trailer. I'm fine with military movies. Most of them do an okay job, holding up to everything that should be done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, or the show, told a story that worked very well up to the point to where he just kind of went AWOL, and I'm like, nobody's asking where this fool's at.
Right.
A lot of people are trying to find him, but not the right kind of people.
Right.
And so
he would be found.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point is that they're trying to give him that Reacher-esque smarts. He knows how to evade everything. Yeah. How am I going to get out of this? I got it all figured out. And it's cool because at the same time, as much as they give him, they also take from him as a character. Chris Pratt, you're right, does a really good job acting in this show. But there's that, when he's on the run, it feels very real. He's still mentally losing it. He lost his drugs to help him out. But at the same time, he's evading, but also falling apart. That whole entire scene, he's just degrading. And you see that because that's real. That's how people are. You're not a machine. You can only go for so long. And I think that is very grounded in realism when it comes to stuff like that. And that's what I really enjoy about this show. Chris Pratt gets me to the point sometimes to where I felt like it was going to be very easy to fall back into Parks and Rec Chris Pratt.
Mm-hmm.
But every time that he got close to it, he came right up to the edge and then backed off.
Mm-hmm.
He just has those mannerisms. And that's the thing that makes the difference. It's kind of putting Joe Pesci or, George Clooney or, someone who has a very long history that we know enough about them and their mannerisms to actually to pick up on it. And Chris Pratt's building the catalog, The man's done enough stuff now where we have a pretty good identity built for him in our heads. And so seeing him in this show worked for me because he was able to act really well.
And I will say Chris Pratt too. He's one of those characters that throughout his career, I can look at everything he's done and he looks different in every single thing he's in, as far as he's either heavier or lighter in every single thing he's in. It's crazy, you know? But
did you say he looked skinny in Thor?
He did. He looked skinnier in Thor than he did in, which is why it was so crazy, because I had just seen Terminal List, but I'm willing to bet Terminal List was probably filmed after Thor, after his 2 or 3 minutes in Thor, you know?
Yeah.
So it's I'm not sure what the timing was with those, but yeah, he did in Thor. He looked way thinner than he did in Terminal List.
I know that. Well, two things, because I know that number one, that shot with Thor on the planet. I can't remember which name of the ship that they're on now, the Milano or the other one. What's the
Milano is his ship.
Yeah, but is it the one that gets blown up and then he gets the Venator?
Oh yeah, I think you might be right.
One of them. So whichever ship whenever that behind the scenes picture came out, where it was Taika and Chris Hemsworth, that was like, it seemed like it was forever ago. Like when the first time we got pictures like Chris Hemsworth's biceps, just 4 people wide. But they were in that scene, so they had to be shooting it then. But then also, like just a couple months ago, they were shooting the holiday special, Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, in Los Angeles. So I don't know. I mean, I would imagine that it took a whole lot longer to shoot the Terminal List for him.
Oh yeah.
Than maybe either one of those. I don't know, but the show does some things really well. Number one, at the end of the first episode, you're given so much information. At the end of the first episode, you're like, what in the heck is going on? And then the rest of these series is a slow burn is going to be the wrong way to say it, but it is it's a constant push to achieve a task. And it felt like that was done really well. Yeah.
With this show, like I said, the first 3 episodes, it keeps you on the edge of your seat of whether this is really happening or not, or whether it's in his mind. Once they get past that point and you realize, no, this is really happening, it continues to give you mysteries and things to try to figure out about where this is going and how we got to here and like what's happening. Like, it keeps you on your toes. There was only one thing that I saw coming, and I only saw it coming. I think I saw it coming when I was supposed to see it. So like I saw it right before it happened, and I think it's when you're supposed to. And I don't know if you saw it. Of course, the very end is, he's going through this list in the whole series of people that were responsible for killing his kid, and he doesn't know the last person on the list, but he has an idea of who it is. Well, it turns out being his friend that's been helping him out the whole time. I realized that the moment that they said that it was an offshore account in Peru, which is when I think you're supposed to know that, because like 2 or 3 times in the series he's mentioned going to a beach in Peru, retiring there. So I don't think I figured it out before then, but I was like, wait a second. So that was the only thing that didn't catch me completely by surprise, was that very end, because I saw it right before it was supposed to happen. But I think they wanted to give you that one to figure out.
Yeah, because where do they always say that the offshore accounts are?
I don't remember.
Cayman Islands.
Oh, yeah.
They always say Cayman Islands, and then this one they definitely changed that up. Yeah.
So thought that was cool. Actors were great. Good acting cast in here. The girl who plays the reporter, I thought did a really, really good job. I was in fear that she was going to die every single episode.
Yeah.
So they do a good job of that. I was like, oh, she's dead. Yep, she's about to die. Oh, look, she's going to die right here. And then she didn't. So, spoiler. Yeah. Oh, all in all, man, I love this. We keep getting that scene going back to the bird crashing into the window. That's like they reference back to it 4 or 5 times throughout the series until the very end when you actually get to see this scene. And this scene has to do with morality and dealing with morality and that type of stuff. So it's very fitting where they actually put in that. I don't know, man. Like I said, as a person who's been in the military, and I don't you have to be in the military to know people with PTSD, but I've known a lot of people with PTSD. I thought they did a really good job of respecting that or showing that side of things, because I think that's a side of things that a lot of people don't look at. A lot of people who aren't in the know don't look at and don't realize the things that these soldiers go through and the stuff they have to go through, and how it can really, really mess you up, like in ways that nobody can help you out or nobody can ever know, but what's in your head. And I like that they did a good job of, that's kind of the overall message in this. It's the main problem. And even the character who he thinks at the end is the one on the list, the senator or whoever she was, or Congress lady, I can't remember who she was, the one who's been trusted the whole time, and then at the end he thinks it's her. He almost kills her.
Head of the department.
Yeah, well, she kills herself at the end, and I do like that, because when she pulls the gun out, I think for sure that's that moment where the reporter's going to die. I was like, oh, she's going to kill her right here. I hate to say I like it that I saw somebody kill themselves, but it fit for the story, because the entire time you're watching this woman, you want to believe she's not evil. You want to believe she's not wrong. And it comes down to the end
where she gains your trust.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it comes down to the end of, you're not wrong, but what you did was wrong. The way you did it was wrong. I mean, it's a Thanos thing. You're not wrong. You just messed up right here, man. And then, like, that's the one spot where you should have changed things. So,
well, it was, and because the story is pretty heartwarming too. I mean, like, the overarching story for the whole entire series is that there's some sort of scheme going on, that a drug was being tested on the Navy SEALs, so an elite squad of people in the military, to try to, is it curb or prevent, or
I think it was to curb the effects of PTSD.
Yeah. And so essentially it's like we're talking about the tiptoe steps of getting into, like, building a super soldier, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, like, we're skirting around the question of, like, the next thing would be, well, how do we take all emotions away from them so they don't feel bad killing? But the actress that you're talking about, I believe her role was the Secretary of Defense. Okay. And it seemed that she was so high up, but yet still so grounded and close to Chris Pratt's character, because of in the end, you come to find out that, she feels bad about what she did. Mm-hmm. She knows what's going on, but at the same time too, like, she lived a life of growing up in that kind of PTSD area where dad was an alcoholic, dealing with trauma and, like, all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. And, like, it was something that she wanted to change, only to come to find out that she kind of screwed up, but she plays it off so well. Like, the whole entire time you think that she's with you and she could be bad. She's with you. She could be bad. And then when you get to the end, clearly, things are bad, but it really adds to the story, because at no point did you feel like you knew exactly what was going on. You were finding out with Chris Pratt, and that's the best way to find out in some of these series, is you work through everything with the character as they're kind of figuring it out. Mm-hmm. You might be a couple steps ahead just because you're able to piece some things together, but it works out. Yeah. Reacher kind of kept you on your toes. You knew what was going on. What's the other, Jack Ryan? Same kind of thing. You're finding out with the character. Amazon has a good track record of these types of stories. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they have, like, a consulting team that helps them kind of really keep, like, a narrow focus when it comes to telling people how to write, or what to write, or where to end up, give advice on. But it's paying off, because I was interested in the confusion part of it. Like I said, that's what drew me in, and I watched the whole show. Like, I had to turn it off, because, like, I couldn't stay up and keep watching it when it was on the first time. I think you said the same thing.
Yep.
So it was one of those moments to where it's like, I'm really interested. And, like, once again, you have all of the episodes available right there for you. And so my constant argument of, is it better to get the drip feed or just to get it all at once? I mean, sometimes, man, just getting it all at once. Mm-hmm. Umbrella Academy, you talked about that last week. You get it all at once, and you're just like, steam right on through that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard sometimes. Like, some shows I have no problem. Like you said, the drip effect, if you're talking just watching it weekly or whatever, just as it comes out. Some shows, man, like, I lose the remote and I don't feel like looking for it. Like, I'm like, if I can turn it off, I'll find the remote. If the remote's not around me and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, it's just gonna keep playing. Like there's no stopping it, and I have no problem with it. And that's how I decide. I'm like, well, I guess this is what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
Here's my day, right? Which is funny because
So I go find the remote. That's just
yeah. I think it's funny people who complain about long movies and like, oh, I hate 3.5 hour, 4 hour movies, but I'll go home and I'll stream 8 hours of a show. It's like, well, it's the same thing. Yeah. I guess not technically.
When you're
it's not
at
the same
home,
thing. Yeah,
you get up, use the bathroom, you can get food, you can do all the other stuff that you want to do.
I'm just not I don't mind a long movie as long as it's a good story.
Yeah, me neither.
I just fall in that category. But yeah, man, this show, Terminal List, like I said, I think it's Pratt's best acting job. Really, really good show. I'm not sure if we're going to get more of this. I'm not sure if this was a one-off 10-part series and it's done. To be honest with you, if it is, I'm fine with that. They wrapped it up just fine at the end. It'd be cool to see again, but I don't need to see anymore. I really liked very creative ways to torture people on this show.
Oh, you talking about when they went in
down in Colombia and Mexico or wherever it was? Yeah. Cut the guy's stomach open, pull his intestines out, nail it to the pole, then make him walk away.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time I've heard of it, but yeah.
Whew, that's the first time I've heard of that. That's pretty insane. And then who was the other guy? The guy, his wife and his kids, the one general or the one officer has his wife and his kids at the beach.
Yeah. I don't remember his exact role, but he's essentially almost like the PR lawyer person.
Yeah,
for the department.
JAG associate. Yeah, I love how he straps the claymores to him. I was like, that's very, very creative. I like that. And then, of course, the poetic justice with killing the one drill sergeant who was with the log in the water, who was just total dick to him and was part of the problem too. So,
yeah,
but
they definitely worked their way through the problems in this one.
I will tell you, the reasoning of what that drill sergeant said, this is another one of those situations. You're not wrong, dude. You are not wrong. But one thing, this is what you signed up for. So if that's all you get when you get done, that's all you get. You signed up for it.
Yeah.
And two, even though you're not wrong, this is not the way to go about it. So
that's always the great thing. It's like he said, the whole point of that was, the person to your left, person to your right. And then when you go and you stand and try to become your own person, you clearly screwed up and fall. Not to mention when you throw all your people underneath the bus.
Mm-hmm.
This show's good. If you have not seen it, then I don't know why you just listened to us spoil the whole thing for you. Mm-hmm. But
I think you can still watch it and have a few surprises.
Yeah.
Enjoy it pretty good.
I tried not to get super crazy, but I mean, Greg probably told you the worst one with the torture scene. Really, everything else is just a good story. To your point of, I think that this is probably going to be a one-off. Because in my eyes, if they were to do a sequel to this, it would be Reacher. Reacher would be the sequel to this. Yeah. That person that goes around because now, his family's gone and he's all sorts of other things are happening.
Out of the military, badass. Yeah, you're right. That's pretty much what you get. So,
which I'm fine with. If they want to give me that, I'm cool. I'm cool with getting another type of that.
I mean, yeah, but the thing is, if it's going to be forced or just put in there for the sake of and screwed up and not done right, I'd rather just not get it. Just leave this at night and give me another story of something else.
That's pretty much what this episode right here is all about, Greg. Tonight we have discussed that if things are done right, we will watch it.
We'll watch it. That's right. There you go. That's the name of the show right there. Well, dude, you got anything else you want to bring up about Terminal List? Which, by the way, we didn't even mention the name of why it was called Terminal List. We did talk about the PTSD stuff, but the whole point is they give them this drug and it gives them all tumors. And the whole point of them killing all these people is they kill all his squad because they're trying to cover up that they gave them all tumors.
Yep.
So anybody that's involved in it has to be killed.
Classic cover-up story.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But again, I highly recommend done very well.
Mm-hmm. Very, very well. Like I said, really good job by Chris Pratt. All right, man. Well, that's all we got. Like I said, shorter show this week. Awesome independent comic creators coming on. Miss Marvel wrapped up. Talked a little Terminal List. Don't know what the plans are for next week, but we're going to get them out there. I'm sure we'll come up with something. Maybe we'll do a retro. what's the word I'm looking for? We'll go back and watch a movie we've seen before. Interview it. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Retrospective. I said retro. I don't know why. We'll do a retrospective.
You were halfway there.
I was halfway there. Yeah, I don't know why I stopped, but we'll figure it out, man. It's gonna be a good time. But you can check me out at the BatDaddy52 on Twitter. It's my personal handle. Check out at GCS Podcast 1. That's the show handle. Give us a like, give us a review, share, tell a friend. You can check us out on any podcatcher of your choice. We're here live every Friday or Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Audio drops on Mondays or Tuesdays, depending on how busy I am. Other than that, love having y'all listen. Can't wait to see you next week. Keep pounding.
Later.
See, I didn't do it this